I've got a fair amount to say, so I shan't say too many jokes. I did have a brief chat with Gareth, who was mentioned in the first line of my little speech here, and he does assure me that he's still the leader of the Welsh group of UKIP, so that's definitely a good start. Anyway, my topic is why support the family is needed now. December the 12th last year, Gareth Bennett, now UKIP leader of the Welsh Assembly, was briefly, or the UKIP group, was briefly banned from speaking in the Senate after saying transgender is, and I quote, a deviation from the norm. He went on to say that there is only so much deviation from the norm that a society can take before it completely implodes. And I agree wholeheartedly with him, as I hope and trust you do. The next day, after no doubt a little chat, a Labour member of the Assembly complained strongly to the presiding officer, who called Gareth's remarks particularly hateful. She demanded he apologise. He refused, so she banned him from speaking. Gareth left the chamber while Neil Hamilton's attempted intervention was brushed aside. Gareth's right to speak was later reinstated, but a point was made. Speaking out against transgenderism was going to be officially suppressed. Now, so-called transgender children are being treated as if they're owned by the state. Childish claims to be unhappily trapped in an opposite-sex body will actually be supported by the NHS and our schools, notwithstanding the fact that about 98% of these cases, these feelings, die away naturally after puberty. In Ohio, parents who refused to allow their daughter to receive cross-sex hormones that would make her infertile lost custody to her grandparents. Apparently, they would allow her immature but healthy womb to be chemically sterilized. This shows us that those who believe absurdities are prepared to commit atrocities. The proper purpose of puberty blockers is to stop sex hormones after being prematurely started in children. So there's a legitimate reason for these things existing, but they're not meant to be used to stop healthy bodies developing. Notice anorexics are not encouraged to lose weight, even though they believe they are too fat. So what you believe about yourself shouldn't be the determining factor for what sort of treatment you get. Girl Guide leaders have been expelled for speaking out against the new policy of allowing biological males claiming to be females into the guides. The policy includes not telling parents that on camps, biological males will share bathrooms and bedrooms with their daughters. Another obvious abuse is sportsmen claiming to be transgendered and winning events against biological females. Can you imagine the frustration and overwhelming sense of injustice felt by genuine sportswomen who've trained hard only to be beaten by a slightly feminized man? This malevolent and hypocritical movement, allied with those calling for a spurious equality and being who you are, is delusional, dishonest, unjust, and destroying the common good. So what can we do to stop this powerful ideology? For a start, we can support the natural family, which is the strongest institution we have to preserve our freedom from totalitarian state control. We can refuse to be silenced by upholding our God-given right to challenge the politically powerful who are determined to force us to accept unconscionable falsehoods as true. Karl Marx saw the family as a chief obstacle to his adolescent fantasy of heaven on earth, of international socialism. Today, his followers want to establish it through applying the contradictory principles of equality and diversity. Tragically for us, very powerful people appear to believe in Marx's delusion. Today's social justice warriors want everyone to believe in this mirage. They insist everyone should follow Lenin's political correctness. If anyone speaks out against it, a campaign of character assassination is mounted, making absurd charges of hatefulness, bigotry, and discrimination. And if that fails to bring silence, they resort to physical intimidation and shutting down opposition meetings. The other major obstacles Marx identified were our traditional Judeo-Christian values and patriotism, love of country. They all had to be destroyed. His later disciples set out to undermine faith in them through a campaign of mockery and biased criticism. To dignify it, they called it critical theory. Organized intellectuals like the influential Frankfurt School have poisoned the West with Lenin's political correctness. Massive damage has been inflicted by a relentless depiction of men as inadequate or oppressive, and women as the stronger sex. No wonder our families are in a very weakened state. Our children are among the unhappiest in the industrialized world. Too many are highly vulnerable to being enticed into a vicious criminal underworld, becoming mules or drug carriers in the growing network of so-called county lines. Allow me to quote from last month's Daily Mail. On the 17th, it carried a report that asked, who are the conduits of this expanding trade? The answer was, and I quote, children, predominantly boys from troubled backgrounds, enticed into a life of crime with promises of money, kudos, and a sense of belonging often lacking in their home lives. Later in the article, we read how the gangs find these children from broken homes, some living with foster parents or in care. Even without being recruited by organized criminals, these children are attracted to gangs that deceptively offer the sense of belonging they deeply miss, but which their broken or incompletely formed families are unable to supply. It was Antonio Gramsci, an Italian communist of the 1930s, who taught his followers to spread the idea that instead of looking to their family, their church and their nation as the bedrock of their lives, they should look to international socialism. He also urged them to slowly take over their nation's political and cultural institutions. His urgings were very successful, and that is why we are where we are now. He directed his followers to form expedient alliances with political groups like feminists, anti-Christian organizations, and gay rights activists. He also advocated teaching a new doctrine about human nature in society, that men and women don't have to be limited by the traditional roles of fatherhood and motherhood. Following Marx, he saw the traditional family as men oppressing women and children. His solution was for women to work and be economically independent from men, and for children to be raised by the state in nurseries where they would learn to be compliant workers. Even Barack Obama declared, "We all belong to the government," but we don't. In a democracy, the government belongs to the people, not the other way around. Obama publicly supported marriage as being only between a man and a woman as recently as 2015, then went on a journey, which ended with him supporting same-sex marriage as equal to natural marriage. America's Supreme Court decided that for the sake of equality, men had to have the right to marry other men. But they are not the same as natural marriages. To have children, same-sex couples have to contract in the missing sexual component to become parents. The children are automatically cut off from knowing one natural parent. This denies them the right declared by the United Nations for all children to know and have access to their parents, a right all member countries have signed up to, but some ignore with impunity. So what we have here is the new right to be a parent overruling the old established right of a child to know both parents. Today, our elderly, who remember their parents and grandparents as heroes, who stood against tyrants and dictators, are too often lonely and afraid. Their age is no longer any form of protection from wicked thugs who see them merely as easy victims. Probably cut off from their own natural family, they cannot see their elderly victims as being like them, like their own parents or grandparents. It is the natural, loving family that cares for us most, nurturing the qualities we need to grow into mature, discerning adults. Our families don't have to be perfect for us to recognize them as our first line of support and overwhelmingly superior to any care provided by the state. The loving family can't help but transmit its history, traditions, morals, and beliefs to its children. It creates the foundation we need to grow into mature adults of good judgment within a country based on Judeo-Christian values. If we are to recover a more civilized society, we must support the natural traditional family now. Thank you.